So yesterday I made this whole video about round penning horses, and I did it in the round pen and I filmed it, and I used this little nifty device to speak about what I was teaching as I was teaching it, and it didn't work. This is broken. Didn't work at all. And even though the light was on and it said it was recording and everything, it got none of the audio, and you can just hear all the background noise of like horses walking in the background and the feed truck running and all those things. So I'm going to voice over that content and still get you, hopefully, some really helpful information about how to round pen horses and why we do it. But it's not going to be quite the same as what we had originally planned for, because it's completely unusable. So full disclosure there, and hopefully this information is still useful. And yeah, let's get into it.
So the first thing I want to cover is why we round pen versus lunge a horse. The big thing for me is safety. So for horses that are flighty or nervous, or maybe that I don't know very well, it's better to use, in my opinion, a round pen because you're not attached. So if things go wrong, you are able to keep your distance and keep yourself safe. A lunge line can be helpful for a little bit more subtle control. It can also be useful if you don't have access to a round pen. You can set up a lunge situation anywhere, and you're probably hearing my baby cooing in the background. Sorry for that. She's actually asleep, but she's making all kinds of little noises. It can also be really useful just for like simplicity's sake if you're wanting to just quickly get your horse out and kind of do what I call a brain check without having to set up a full-on lunge line and have all the equipment and all of that stuff. So it can be a really valuable tool. And there are three main reasons why I teach people to round pen. The first is what I just mentioned, the brain check. And this is really useful if you're planning on doing something else. So if you're planning on riding or going on a trail ride or putting your horse in the trailer, it can be really useful to just take a couple of minutes in the round pen to sort of see what horse is showing up today. Especially if you have a horse that can be a little bit unpredictable, you can kind of see what you're dealing with before you get in the saddle. One of my school horses, I put him in the round pen every single time he's ridden, no matter what, just to help him loosen up and warm up before I put the saddle on, because I know that he can carry quite a lot of tension in his back, and it can just make the whole process a little bit more comfortable and appealing for him. The second reason we might round pen a horse would be for exercise. So if you don't have the time to ride, or if it's kind of a day off, but your horse still needs to move a little bit, this can be a really useful way to get some movement for your horse without having to put a saddle on and commit to like a whole hour of riding. The third reason that we like to use the round pen is for actual training. So especially for young horses or horses that maybe you don't know very well yet, or that you're trying to develop some particular conditioning or skill under saddle, or even a horse that is not rideable, you can get a lot of work done training wise and relationship building wise in the round pen. Okay, so now let's get into how to actually use the round pen. So the very first thing I always do, especially if it's a horse I don't know very well yet, is do a little test to see if they're afraid of the whip. The goal with this device is to make yourself able to communicate in the way that a horse communicates. So if you notice, often with these round pen devices that we use, like a whip or a flag or a stick, if you hold it out with an extended arm, you become approximately horse length from head to tail. And if you hold it straight up and down, you become approximately horse height. And so you can then use this whip to sort of simulate horse body language in a more effective way, and in a way that the horse really understands and can interpret. We're never going to use the whip for force, and we're never going to use the whip to inflict pain or cause fear in the horse. That is the big one. We're using a tool as a means of communication, not as a means of force. So again, I want to make sure that the horse doesn't come in with any preconceived ideas about what the whip means that would cause them to have that fear. So I'm going to just kind of gently lay the whip over the horse's back with a very relaxed body language. I'm clearly not asking for anything in this moment from the horse. My body language is telling them that we're just hanging out. And I'm just going to make sure that I can touch the horse all over with the whip, or again, if I'm using a flag or a rope or any other device, to make sure that they are comfortable and that they are not perceiving any threat. Once I know that the horse doesn't perceive any threat, then I'm going to sort of change my body language to something a little bit more active, and I'm going to send the horse out of my space. And the first thing I want to kind of attune to, so to speak, is the drive line. So the drive line is the space, the sort of crease right between the horse's shoulder and neck. And this concept applies actually to most prey animals. If you think about, in my experience, I've used the same concept with cattle, with goats, with sheep. Any kind of four-legged prey animal like this is going to usually respond to pressure concerning the drive line. So any pressure that we add behind the drive line is going to send the horse forward, and any pressure that we apply in front of the drive line is going to cause the horse to slow down or even turn. So this is a really important thing for you to focus on. And the very first thing I'm going to do is make sure that my shoulders are either at the drive line or maybe slightly in front, but I'm not going to put my shoulders significantly in front of the drive line or even in front of the horse, because if I aim my shoulders, or if you think about maybe even aiming your sternum, if that's easier to think about than your shoulders, if I aim my sternum in front of the horse, I'm going to be telling that horse to slow down in horse language. So I want to make sure that I'm using my body language in a very neutral way, unless I am intentionally asking the horse to slow down or turn. The next thing I'm going to think about is my whip positioning. And I want to position the whip so that it's pointing behind the horse. The closer the whip is pointing to the horse's body, the more pressure they're going to feel. So when I'm not intentionally asking the horse to move faster or move forward, I'm going to just relax the whip either on the ground behind me, or I'm going to kind of place it, rest it over my elbow or even maybe my shoulder, as just a way of taking the pressure off. When I want to add pressure to encourage the horse to move faster, move forward, I'm going to bring the whip or the rope or the flag toward the horse's tail in a way that's going to encourage that horse to move a little bit more forward. As soon as I get the response from the horse, I'm going to take the whip back to that neutral position behind me or behind the horse. So let's also quickly go over vocal cues. So vocal cues can be super effective, and I've heard a lot of people say that horses don't really understand a lot of words, but that what they're really reacting to is your tone or the sound of your voice. And while I do believe this is true, I actually also believe that horses do understand words, because I have done a little experiment and I have stopped using various tones when I give a verbal command to horses, and I've been able to successfully teach all of my horses to respond to a particular word without any tonal change and also without any body language change. So I can tell my horses to walk, trot, canter, or stop just from the words that I choose to use in my voice and not from anything else, which is extremely helpful and powerful, because then again, if we're using the round pen as a method of training, then when we get under saddle, we have our voice to back us up. The thing we want to be really careful of here is that we don't overuse the words. So the more we use the words, the less power they end up having. I kind of think of it as like the kid that's sitting there going, "Mom, mom, 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 mom," and the mom doesn't even hear them, right? It's the same idea. The mom has become desensitized to that word. And then the kid all of a sudden is like, "Ruby," and the mom, "Yes, what do you need?" Right? Because they haven't been desensitized to their name. So we want to be really careful that if we're using verbal commands like the cluck or whoa, easy, that the horse is not getting desensitized to those, because it's going to make them ultimately ineffective. So the words that I choose to use, or the sounds that I choose to use, I say walk or walk on. I say trot, and you'll hear a lot of people say trot like that. That's the sort of tonal. You can use that as well if you'd like. but I've found just the word trot to be effective as long as you enunciate. I'll either say canter or I'll give a kiss like that. And I'll pick one and stick to it depending on the horse that I'm working with. And then in terms of slowing the horse down, I'll say whoa. And whoa always means stop. It does not mean slow down, because again, like let's say I'm riding and we get into a bad situation and I'm in an emergency, I want that horse to know that if I say whoa, I'm telling them to stop completely. Easy is my term for slow down. So if they're cantering and the canter is getting a little bit big and I really was looking for a more slow, relaxed canter, I'll just say easy and the horse will slow down. Good is my word for yes, you did the correct thing there. You can also say yes. You could say good horse. You can use really any word you want, but you want to, again, make sure it's not a word that you're just throwing around willy-nilly. So you don't want to be, you want to be aware that if the word is good and you're talking to your friend and you're saying, good morning, that your horse might pick up on that. So just be aware. So those are the main vocal cues. I'll also use the cluck as a way of encouraging movement. So to me, the cluck doesn't necessarily mean faster. It also doesn't necessarily mean like kind of wake up or perk up. What it really means is kind of, hey, listen, pay attention, I'm asking for movement. And then I'll follow up the cluck with the specific movement that I'm asking for. So as an example, I'll use the cluck when I'm doing stationary groundwork, where I'm asking the horse to just, plant their front feet and move only their hind end. And I'll cluck and then ask them to move. I'll also use the cluck if their trot is a little bit more sluggish than I'd like, and I'd like a little bit more energy from the trot. I'll cluck, but also follow that up at the same time with the body language that says, move a little bit more forward. So it's kind of a way of just saying, hey, check in with me because I'm asking for something involving movement here. The thing that I really encourage you to be careful of is that you don't become one of the cluck machines, that you're just constantly walking around clucking at your horse, because again, your horse is going to start to tune that out. They're just going to be like, oh, this person clucks a lot, and they're not really
And don't forget to subscribe and like this video so that you can get more content like this.